Shalom everyone and welcome to Busisiwe, which is Baruch in Hebrew. My name is Abigail. I know it's been a while since we had a recording. I have been focusing on ALUaH Psalms, which is the music ministry, and so excited that the third album will be released tomorrow, actually from midnight South African time. I'm not sure in other countries, but South African time midnight it will be out. But definitely tomorrow I'll be singing a new song to YaHUaH, 17 songs in the third album, which is entitled Come to YaHUaH's Throne. Well, today we are going to be looking at Yom Teruah, or the scriptures are referring to Yom Teruah, or Day of Shouts, otherwise known as Day of Trumpet, as YaHUaH commanded us in the book of UYQRA, or Leviticus chapter 23 verse 24, where he said to MaSHaH, "Speak to the children of YaSHaRAL, saying, in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, you have a rest, or a SHaBaT, a remembrance of blowing of trumpet, a QaDaSH MaQRA, or a QaDaSH gathering." So we are commanded, since it is a day of trumpets, or day of shouts, or Yom Teruah, to blow the trumpet, to blow the shofar. It's actually a shofar, and we'll then be going through the scriptures as to when are we to blow the shofar or the trumpet, and why should we blow the shofar or the trumpet. So let's see. Blowing the trumpet, blowing the shofar, not the trumpet, there's a shofar as commanded. I tried. Well, I know some of you might be saying, hey, why are you talking about Yom Teruah, or Day of Shout, or Day of Trumpet, when everybody is talking about Passover this time of the year? Well, this is exactly why we have to talk about why today, because YaHUaH, when he instructed YaSHaRAL as they were leaving Mitzrayim, or Egypt, he commanded them that they were to observe his appointed time according to the promised land. So it has to be, his appointed time must be according to the seasons of the promised land. And we find this in the book of SHaMaT, or Exodus chapter 13 verse 5, where he specifically say that the appointed times must be according to the seasons of the land where YaSHaRAL was going to, the promised land where they were going to. So it's not arbitrary to anyone to just decide when they observe these days, but it has to be according to the promised land, even as I've referred to SHaMaT, or Exodus 13 verse 5. Most people have accepted that the people who are in the modern state Israel, somewhere there in the Middle East, are not true YaSHaRAL. And they've actually, it's been a lot of discussion and revelation and understanding, but most people, they are now accepting that, which is what YaHUaH spoke about. YaHUaH HaMaShiach, he did speak about these people in the book of Revelation chapter 2 verse 9, as well as Revelation chapter 3 verse 9, where he said that there are some who call themselves Jews or Yahudim, but they are not. They actually are a synagogue of Satan. And in chapter 3 verse 9, he says, I will make you I will make them come and bow down before you and know that you are my people and know that I have chosen you. So then from the discussion that we have had in the previous teachings was to know who are these people that he's talking about. And with all that I spoke previously, even regarding the book that I wrote, which I've been referring to quite some time, that says the true YaSHaRal, the people and the land. I know information or knowledge come in different phases. We first accepted and acknowledged and accepted that those people that they call themselves the Yahudim or the Jews, they actually are not Jews. But then later on, it was also through revelation and YaHUaH revealing it through visions, through dreams, which are also I covered in this book, as well as scriptures that show that even that land, it's not the promised land, which we're made to believe that it was the promised land. So the appointed times of YaHUaH must be observed according to the true promised land, according to the only land that YaHUaH promised to his children, not the fake state which has been made. Now, obviously they claimed, those people that they are the people of the scriptures, and it turned out that they are not, and they also claimed that that was their land, and at the end it's also not the land that was promised to YaSHaRal. And the promised land is actually in the southern Africa. Sorry, the promised land is actually in the southern Africa. I have also gone through all the details in this particular book, and you will also see when you go through the book, the true YaSHaRal, the people and the land. I'm not the only person that started writing on this matter. My brother also, Shikombororo Kuana, also wrote a book regarding the promise of the people of the scriptures, and there's so many other brothers and sisters who have written even before me on this matter. Now, I know some people say that the promised land is in East Africa, and some they say it's in West Africa. And from my understanding and the revelation that I have, it is in the southern Africa. But be as it may, regardless of those that believe it's in East Africa or West Africa or Southern Africa, the point that we all agree on is that the promised land is within the sub-Saharan Africa. The promised land is within the sub-Saharan Africa, and as such, the seasons which are supposed to be followed according to Shemot or Exodus chapter 13 verse 5 must be the seasons according to the sub-Saharan Africa. Other people say Southern Hemisphere. I tend to avoid the term Southern Hemisphere and Northern Hemisphere, because then people say, yeah, you see, if you say there's a Southern Hemisphere and a Northern Hemisphere, it means then the earth is a globe, which it is not a globe. But anyway, a topic for another day or another discussion. But in this case, the seasons that we are to be observing for the appointed times of YaHUaH are the seasons of the promised land, and the promised land is in Southern Africa. I believe that it is we believe that it is in the Southern Africa. Yes, there are brothers and sisters that says it's in the East Africa or West Africa. Regardless, be as it may, according to their understanding, ultimately it's all within sub-Saharan Africa, and there's a seasons, a different season in terms of timing between the Southern Africa or the Southern Hemisphere as well as the Northern Hemisphere. So the way they actually differ, there's actually like approximately 6 months apart. They're literally opposite each other. So when it is spring in sub-Saharan Africa or Southern Hemisphere, which is around September, It is actually it's beginning of spring in the northern hemisphere in March. In fact, I just Google today as I'm doing this recording, which is the 20th of March 2026. So if you can just go and Google it, or any search engine that you prefer, it says that today, the 20th of March 2026, is spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, marking the start of spring to them and the start of autumn in the southern hemisphere. So it is to us it's autumn who are in the southern hemisphere or who are in sub-Saharan Africa, but those that are in the northern hemisphere, to them it is spring. It is for this reason then that they are celebrating Passover around this time, those who are in the northern hemisphere, because the barley is Abib around this time of the year, meaning this season in the northern hemisphere being about March, April. But in the southern hemisphere, or in the sub-Saharan Africa, the barley was Abib, or ready for harvest, around September, October, which marks the beginning of the new months, or the beginning of the months, or the first month of the months, also as found in the book of Shemot, chapter 13, verse 4, or Exodus chapter 13, verse 4, because YaHUaH spoke to them and he said, today, the month Abib, you are moving out of Mitzrayim. Today marks the beginning of months for you. So month 1 is determined by the barley being Abib, which, as I said, in the southern hemisphere or sub-Saharan Africa, actually it is around September, October, and then where else in northern hemisphere around March, April. It also can be seen the differences, which is about 6 months time apart, as I've explained, with spring equinox. So spring equinox happens on around the 22nd, 23rd of September in sub-Saharan Africa or in southern hemisphere, whereas in the northern hemisphere it happens around March, either the 20th of March, 21st of March. So that's why, as I said, as we're recording this video, being the 20th of March, when you see on any search engine, it's going to say that it is spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. But in the southern hemisphere, the spring equinox happened either on the 22nd or 23rd of September each year. And you can also, when you go on Google, what does spring equinox mean? It's basically where the sun cuts the equator, and the sun, the night and the day is more or less split into the same, but you can literally go there and get the exact explanation. But that the spring equinox actually marks the beginning of either spring in the case of northern hemisphere, and then autumn in our case is in southern hemisphere, and then they go opposites. So that's the reason why we are blowing the trumpet. Still learning. Okay. With that being said, one thing that I also want to emphasize is that it is not arbitrary that YaHUaH chose the first day of the 7th month as one of his appointed time to be his QaDaSH, or one of his QaDaSH days. And why am I saying that it's not arbitrary? The scripture tells us that MaSHaH, or Moses, knew the ways of YaHUaH, but YaSHaRal knew the acts of YaHUaH. So in this case, we have to know his ways. How does he do what he does? Not only the people that are only going to be after the act when something has already happened, but be in the know, in the process. How does it do what he does? So in knowing and walking with him, observing and hearing and watching and seeing how he does things, we see this pattern that comes often regarding number 7. So the first day of the 7th month being a QaDaSH MaQRA, or a set apart day of gathering, is not, as I said, arbitrary. It is because of the pattern that YaHUaH shows us in how he operates. Number 1, he instructed us to rest every 7th day of the week. 7th day of the week, so that's a weekly SHaBaT. And then also he also instructed us to observe the Feast of SHaBaT, or Feast of Weeks. And now the Feast of SHaBaT basically means weeks, is calculated by counting 7 weeks from Passover or Pesach, and then on the 50th day, that's when it becomes a QaDaSH MaQRA. A QaDaSH meaning a set apart, QaDaSH set apart, MaQRA means gathering or assembling. So for us to assemble. So again, there you're counting 7 weeks. So we started by counting 7 days, then we rest on the 7th day. Then 7 weeks, which is SHaBaT. And then these appointed times of YaHUaH, you will find again, as I said earlier on, in the book of UYQRA, or Leviticus chapter 23 verse 24. He also commanded that the land must rest every 7,000th year. So every 7,000th year, the land must rest, and people must not be must not be plowing in that particular year. And he even gives details on how are they supposed to be eating if they did not plant. He always take care of his own, even as he gave specification with regard to what to be done on the 6th day, being the day of preparation, so that people will not go out and collect manna on the 7th day. Even also in the 7th year, as written in the book of UYQRA or Leviticus 25, he is very specific also there as to how is he going to be preparing for his children in terms of the harvest that they will reap in the 6th year. It was going to be, it would last them for the 6th year. It will last them for them to eat in the 6th year, for them to eat in the 7th year, the year where they are not plowing or harvesting. Even also last them in the 8th year, because they would not have planted in the 7th year. So the 8th year they're still taken care of by the harvest that they reaped rather in the 6th month. So the 6th year they get produce or harvest to cover them for 3 years, the 6th year, the 7th year, as well as the 8th year. Just see how amazing, how thoughtful our Father is, who always take care of his own, who always take care of his children. And our responsibility is just to trust him and obey him. And obeying him is actually an indication that we trust him. So if we trust him, we're going to obey what he tells us, even if it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense before we can obey. We obey because we trust him. We obey because we love him and he loves us. So that's the pattern around the number 7, that we are now celebrating in the 7th month. So you have 7 days of the week, which is a weekly Sabbath. We have 7 weeks of the month, which we then celebrate SHaBaT. Other people call it Pentecost or Feast of Weeks. We then have 7 months. First day of the 7th month, which is today. Then you also commemorate the day, observe it even as he has instructed us. And then after 7 months, it's then 7 years. The land must rest. And then afterwards, it's then the Jubilee, which is 7 times 7 years, which is 49 years. And 49 years basically on the 50th year, that's where the celebration then happens, where restitution takes place. Those that were slaves, they are now released to their families. Those that were debtors, those that were that were debtors, they are released by their creditors. But it basically refers to a reset that takes place, which YaHUaH worked it out, that nobody is going to be a slave forever, or a debtor to someone forever. So when you look at the SHaBaT, which is 7 times 7 weeks, which is 49 weeks, on the 50th day, then the celebration of SHaBaT is done. So you can parallel the SHaBaT with the Jubilees. The difference between the two is SHaBaT, you're just counting 7 weeks, which is 49 weeks. On the 40th week, it's the day of celebration, which is SHaBaT. And then whereas with YaHUaH or Jubilee, it is 7 times 7 years, which is 49 years. Then on the 50th year, that's when restoration happens, where everyone goes back to their land and freedom and so forth. So this is the pattern that we see with regards to this amazing day that Abba YaHUaH has commanded us to celebrate. Now let's look at, as historically, how did our forefathers commemorate this day? What did they do to celebrate, to observe this day as instructed by YaHUaH? The book of Ezra, chapter 3, verse 6, it says, Ezra, chapter 3, verse 6, otherwise known as Ezra, chapter 3, verse 6, it says, from the first day of the 7th new moon or new month, they began to offer ascending offerings to YaHUaH, but the foundation of the MaQDaSH, or the tabernacle, had not been laid. So even though the foundation of the MaQDaSH, or the foundation of the tabernacle, had not been laid, they still offered ascending offerings to YaHUaH. They still made peace offering to YaHUaH. So there's no such thing. Some people, you hear them saying that, no, we cannot observe the appointed times of YaHUaH because we are not in the land. No, even though you're not in the land, you have to be observing those that are they're still out there in the land of captivity, whether it's America, UK, everywhere abroad, and even in the what do you call it? Basically I just forgot the term where YaHUaH scattered them abroad as a result of in coastal areas, islands. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Different islands where they've been at. They are supposed to be observing the days, the appointed times of YaHUaH, according to the seasons of the land, not the land of captivity, not where they're at, but according to the seasons of the land, the promised land, which, as I said earlier on, that it is in the southern Africa, or a broader perspective with different understanding. As I said, others say East Africa, others say West Africa. Ultimately, it is sub-Saharan Africa, and we all have the same season within. That's basically how they celebrated our forefathers. Also, if you look at the book of Nehemiah or Nehemiah, Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 1 to 3, it says, and when the 7th month came, the children of YaSHaRAL were in their cities, and all the people gathered as one man in the open space that was in front of the water gate, and they spoke to Ezra the scribe to bring the book of the Torah of MaSHaH, which YaHUaH had commanded YaSHaRAL. And Ezra the Khan, or the priest, brought the Torah before the assembly of both men and women, and all who could hear with understanding, on the first day of the 7th month. So the first day of the 7th month, that's when Ezra brought everyone to hear the Torah of YaHUaH. Verse 3 says, and he read it in the open space in front of the west gate from morning till midday, before the men and women and those who could understand, and the ears of all people listened to the book of the Torah. So it was not only, the book of the Torah was not only read before men and women, but even before children, even as the word says, before all who could understand. So as part of us also, we do likewise, even as our forefathers did. We bring an ascending offering. We bring an offering to YaHUaH, and we bring a peace offering to YaHUaH and celebrate this day. And we go through the scriptures, we go through the Torah to read and remind ourselves of what YaHUaH instructed us through his servants. Now, having briefly gone through the historical on how our forefathers celebrated this day, I just want to add some of the things why, when and why are we to blow the shofar or the trumpet or make shout. Obviously, the scriptures that I'm going to be referring to here are not exhaustive. There's so many other scriptures available. There's so many in the book of Revelation, in the book of 2nd Chronicles, in the book of Psalms that talks about blowing the shofar or blowing the trumpet and the shout. But I just chose 3 for the purposes of this recording that looks at when are we to blow it and why are we to blow the shofar or trumpet or shout. So the first of the 3 is that we are to, actually before I go to these 3, one thing that you're going to pick up when I go to these 3 is that a shofar or a trumpet is a communication instrument. It's a communication instrument either to call people together or to awaken people. It's a communication instrument to warn people. It's a communication instrument to give instruction of what needs to be done. And that's basically a communication instrument that we as YaSHaRAL use. So then, with that understanding, number 1, why are we, why and when are we to blow the shofar? Number 1, we are to blow the shofar or instrument or shout on our days of gladness. The days of gladness, the new moons or new months, the full moon or full months, as well as the appointed times. So let's go through the scripture references of where we see the blowing of shofar or instrument taking place as an indication of gladness, as announcement of the new moon or new month, as a celebration and announcement of the full moon, as well as the appointed times. The book of BaMaDBaR, otherwise known as Numbers chapter 10 verse 10, BaMaDBaR or Numbers chapter 10 verse 10, it says, in the day of your gladness, in your appointed times, at the beginning of your new moons, you shall blow the trumpet over your ascending offerings and over your slaughtering of peace offerings. So over your ascending offerings as well as your peace offerings. So you're going to be asking yourself, what offering am I supposed to be bringing this time? We're not slaughtering sheep and pigeons and goats and so forth. It is you. Remember what Romans 12 verse 1 and 2 says. It says that we are to present ourselves as a living sacrifice, as a living offering unto YaHUaH. That is our reasonable worship, that we transform, we renew our minds and by transforming our minds through the word of YaHUaH. So our minds must be renewed by his word. We are then transformed, and then we present ourselves as a living offering. So that's exactly what we are to do, because he says Heaven is my throne, the earth is my footstool. What house can you build for me? What offering can you give for me? I just want you, not what you bring to me. I just want you. I just want your heart. This is the offering that he's looking for. And then also the book of TaHaLYM, or Psalms 81 from verse 3 to 4, it says, if you read especially from the NIV version, it's more clear. It says, sound the ram's horn at the new moon, exactly just like BaMaDBaR chapter 10 verse 10 said, or Numbers 10 verse 10 says, sound the ram's horn at the new moon when the moon is full. It says this in TaHaLYM, or Psalms 81 verse 3 to 4. At full moon. So when do we have the full moon? We have the full moon on the 14th of the month as well as the 15th of the month. Around that time, 14th, 15th of the month, that's when you have the full moon. That's exactly when YaSHaRal left Mitzrayim in that evening, because that was a full moon as they left on the evening of the 14th of the month Abib, or the first month, and that's when they were able to travel at night, because YaHuaH's light in the Shamayim was there in the form of the moon, and it was its fullest light on that particular day. That's why it's called full moon. And then also says that on the day of your festivals or your appointed times, and this is the law, this is a Torah for YaSHaRal. So it's not a suggestion, it's an instruction. It's a Torah, which is a right ruling of YaHUaH ALUaH, who has given us this charge, this Torah, this instruction to obey. And then lastly, we've already spoken about it in the book of UYQRA, or Leviticus 23 verse 24, where he commanded, where YaHUaH told MaSHaH to speak to YaSHaRal, saying that on the first day of the 7th month, you are to have a day of rest, or a SHaBaT, a QaDaSH MaQRA, or gathering, a remembrance of blowing of trumpets. So that's the first reason. One, it's for the day of gladness, the day of new moons, the day of full moon, as well as the appointed time. Secondly, what is the other reason, or when else do we blow the shofar? We do this for calling the assembly, and we see this in the book of BaMaDBaR, or Numbers again, chapter 10, from verse 1 to verse 8, and it says, YaHUaH had said to MaSHaH, or Moses, make 2 instruments of hammered silver and use them for calling the community together. The community has to come together, like not just together as in English term, but like meet. The community must meet. They must assemble. And I'm very much of saying that the meeting must happen in person. The assembly must happen in person. A lot of people have become so accustomed to online meetings, which are good and they have their own time. But here he's talk about the meeting in the place of worship, as in the tabernacle, or Magdash, or Hakal, or the place of gathering in person. Really, that's very, very important, because some people say, no, I'm watching it online, but you're not gathering with anyone. You are alone in the house, you're alone in the room, and you're just watching online, or you're interacting online, or on WhatsApp, whatever the tool might be. It's not the same. Our forefathers did not, I know it's issue with technology, but YaHUaH speaks about gathering, not only online, and neglecting the in-person or physical gathering. So that's very important. Right, so we are told that they are to use 2 trumpets of hammered silver and use them for calling the community. So you call the community from their houses, from their homes, say, come, let's gather together, let's meet together for having, and also for having the camp set out. When both are sounded, the whole community is to assembly before you at the entrance of the tent of meeting. So I'm talking about in-person physical gathering. Verse 4, if only one is sounded, the leaders, the heads of the clans of YaSHaRAL are to assemble before you. When a trumpet blast is sounded, the tribes camping on the east are to set out at the blow of the trumpet, but not with the signal of setting out. The sons of Aaron, the Khan or priest, are to blow the trumpet. So that's what that's why the blowing of the trumpet, meaning calling people to assemble, calling people to together to meet. This is to be a lasting ordinance for you and the generations to come. So it was not just for their time or their season, but this is supposed to be a lasting ordinance, a Torah of YaHUaH for not only that generation, but even the generations to come, including our generation and the generation after us. So that's the second reason for gathering. And the third reason for gathering is that we gather at the time of the battle. The third reason for blowing the shofar or for blowing the trumpet is at the time of the battle. So now if we look at the book of BaMaDBaR or Numbers chapter 10 verse 9, it says, when you go into battle, so there's a reason, when you go into battle in your land, again, your land. So these prophecies and these promises are very much land specific, season specific. Battle in your land against the enemy that distresses you, then you shall shout with the trumpet. So on those days when you're in your land and there are your enemies are battling, or when you go to a battle into a land against your enemy who's doing what, who is distressing you, you are to do what? You are to blow a trumpet, shout a trumpet. In our case, it's not only, obviously there's no guns and spears and stuff like that, but you have an enemy that is distressing you in so many ways. It could be people that that have taken you to some legal processes and unfairly. You are fighting legal battle that you have no idea that how they came about. It was just to spite you or to hurt you or to harm you. That's an enemy to you. And when such things happen, we are commanded to do what? To blow a trumpet. We are commanded to do what? To sing praises unto the Most High. It continues to say, then you shall shout with trumpet. So when you shout with trumpet, so the question is then, what happens when you blow the trumpet? And then it says, and you shall be remembered by YaHUaH. So when your enemy is distressing you, when your enemies are distressing you, when your enemies are fighting you, do not retaliate in your own strength. Do not retaliate in your own abilities, in your own mind. But blow a shofar, blow a trumpet, sing praises, shout praises to the Most High YaHUaH. And when you do that, He will remember His covenant, because it says that you shall be remembered before YaHUaH your ALUaH. Why are you going to be remembered before YaHUaH your ALUaH? Because you are aligning yourself with His scriptures. You are aligning yourself with His word. You are aligning yourself with His command, with His covenant. And it's not a man that he should lie. If you do what He instructed you to do, He will do. He will always do His part. But if you cry and you curse back and you are anxious and you are frustrated, you are doing the opposite of what He told you to do. And when you do that, then He cannot work on your behalf. But then Satan will be manifested in that season or time of anxiety, of frustration, of cursing, of being angry. Because what are you doing? You are actually doing the opposite of what YaHUaH told you to do. And if you're doing the opposite of what YaHUaH told you to do, then it means you're doing what Satan wants you to do, because he wants you to be anxious. He wants you to be frustrated. He wants you to be angry. He wants you to be hurt and to grieve and to feel pity for yourself. Do not fall for his trap. Sing praise unto the Most High. That's why I started by saying earlier on, I am so grateful to Abba YaHUaH that he has led us that the third album is actually coming out on Yom Teruah. It's actually coming out on the day of trumpets, on the day of shouts. And I shared earlier on with my other sister, I was not even aware when we were recording this album that there's so many. I think there are about three songs that have saxophone in this coming album, Come to YaHUaH's Throne. There's also trumpets, so there's shouting and dancing. So this is literally the season. I'm reminded of the scripture where YaHUaH says that in my time I'll make it happen. In my time, he's really doing it in his time, and we are grateful for what he's doing. So don't cry, don't stress, blow the trumpet when you are going through battle, when you are being attacked. I'm also reminded of another song, a Zulu song that says, Ukuhlabelela kuyamthokozisa odabukileyo hlabele. Ukuhlabelela kuyamthokozisa odabukileyo hlabelela. It's exactly saying that when you are in distress, sing praises unto the Most High. When you are not sure what to do, when you're hurting, sing praises to the Most High. The second reason why, another scripture, the second scripture that shows that we are to blow a shofar or trumpet at the time of battle is found in the book of YaHUaH, otherwise known as Joshua, chapter 6 from verse 1 to 16. So let's just go through it quickly. It's YaHUaH, this is YaHUaH the son of Nun, otherwise known as Joshua, chapter 6 from verse 1 to 16, and it reads, And Jericho was shut up tight because of the presence of the sons of YaSHaRAL, none going out and none coming in. And YaHUaH said to YaHUaH, See, I have given you Jericho and its sovereign, mighty brave men into your hand. And you shall go round the city, all the men of the battle going around the city once. Do this for 6 days. Verse 4. I'm reading YaHUaH, which is the son of Nun, or Joshua chapter 6. I'm now reading verse 4, started in verse 1. Verse 4 says, And let the seven Kanim, or Kanim is a priest, because Kan is a priest, singular. Kanim is priest, plural. Okay. Let seven Kanim or priests bear 7 rams of horn before the ark. On the 7th day, go around the city 7 times while the Kanim or the priests blow the horns. Remember earlier on when we started, we spoke about how YaHUaH does what he does. Excuse me. Knowing his ways, not just his acts. And we went through the pattern of number 7. And now here specifically, which the chapter that speaks about how YaHUaH's people, how YaSHaRAL conquered as led by Yahusha the son of Nun in Jericho, we also see the pattern of 7. There were 7 priests that were carrying 7 ram horns, and they were to march around the city 7 times. So you see again 7. This is not arbitrary. Verse 5, and it shall be when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the horn, that all the people shout. There is again, it's a day, it's not only a day of trumpet, but it's a day of shout. So if you can't blow the trumpet, the shofar, as I'm still learning to blow my shofar, you shout like, yay! Shout praises to the Most High Yah. Yes, hallelujah. Yada YaHUaH. You shout and you confuse the enemy. All right, so that all the people are to shout with a great shout, victorious shout. And when that happens, the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall go up, every man straight before him. Verse 6, and Yahusha son of Nun called the Kanim, or the priest, and said to them, take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 Kanim, or priests, bear 7 ram's horn before the ark of YaHUaH, or the ark of the covenant. And he said to the people, pass over and go around the city, and let him who is armed pass over before the ark of YaHUaH. And it came to be, when Yahusha had spoken to the people, that the 7 Kanim, or priests, bearing the 7 ram horns before YaHUaH, passed over and blew the horns. And the ark of the covenant of YaHUaH went after them. Verse 9. And the armed men went before the Kanim, who blew the horns, and the rear guard came after the ark. So what are we seeing here, this pattern? Before the ark of YaHUaH, the ark of the covenant, which represents the presence of YaHUaH, what do we see? We see praise. We see praises taking place. We see shofar being blown by the Kanim, or the priest. When that happens, when the Kanim, or the priest, blow the shofar, when they shout praises, when they sing praises, they usher the presence of YaHUaH. They usher in the presence of YaHUaH, because they precede the presence of YaHUaH. They precede the ark of the covenant. So whatever situation that you find yourself in, you are declaring songs of praise, you're shouting praises, you are blowing that shofar, there is no way that YaHUaH will not show up in your situation. There is no way that YaHUaH, when you're singing praises with your joyful heart, that YaHUaH will not show up on your behalf. This is what we're seeing in terms of the process happening here. Verse 8, and it came to be, when Yahusha had spoken to the people, that the 7 Kanim, or priest, bearing 7 ram's horn before YaHUaH, passed over and blew the horns, and the ark of the covenant went after them. Verse 9, and the armed men went before the Kanim, or the priest, who blew the horns, and the rear guard came after the ark, going on and blowing the horns. But Yahusha had commanded the people, saying, do not shout or cause your voice to be heard, nor let any word come out of your mouth until the day I say to you, shout. Then you shall shout. Verse 11, and the ark of YaHUaH went around the city, going around once. And they came into the camp and stayed in the camp. And Yahusha rose early in the morning, and the priest took up the ark of YaHUaH. Verse 13, and 7 priests bearing 7 ram's horn before the ark of YaHUaH went walking, going on, and they blew the horn, and the armed men went before them. But the rear guard came after the ark of YaHUaH, going on and blowing horns. Verse 14, and the second day they went about the city once and returned to the camp. Thus they did this for 6 days. And it came to be, this is now verse 15, and it came to be on the seventh day, that they rose early about the dawning of the YaHUaH and went around the city 7 times in this way. Only on that day they went around the city 7 times. And it came to be at the 7th time, when the priest blew the horns, that Yahusha said to the people, shout, for YaHUaH has given you the city. Exactly, that is how they conquered in Jericho, because as soon as they shouted, as we used to sing in Dongas, I said Jericho, they fell. Through what? Praises, through what? Shouting, through what? Blowing of shofar, through what? Blowing of trumpet, even as we see. So whatever you're going through, take that trumpet, blow it. You can't blow a shofar, as I can't. I'm still learning to blow mine. Sing praises to him. You can't, you shout, say something, open your mouth, declare his praise. You don't have to be singing, you can just declare his word through his praises. And that's when victory comes. And the last scripture that we're going to be looking at regarding the blowing of a shofar or trumpet or shout at the time of battle is found in the book of Judges. Judges chapter 7. So if you go to Judges chapter 7, we're going to be reading from from verse 7 to 22. Right, Judges chapter 7 from verse 7 to 22, it reads, and YaHUaH said to Gideon, by the 300 men who leapt I save you, and shall give Midian into your hand. Let all the other people go each to his place. Verse 8, and the people took food and their ram's horns. There's again, they took their ram's horns, like this. And the people took food and their ram's horns in their hands, and he sent away all the rest of YaSHaRAL, each to his tent, but kept the 300 men. Now the camp of Midian was below him in the valley. So Gideon has reduced the army, his army for YaSHaRAL, to 300 people. So we're going to see against how many people of the Midian. Verse 9. And it came to be on the... Verse 9, yes. And it came to be on that evening that YaHUaH said to him, arise, go down against the camp, for I have given it into your hand. But if you are afraid to go down, you and Purah, your servant, to the camp, and you shall hear what they say, and afterwards let your hands be strong, and you shall go down against the camp. So he went down with Purah, with his servant, to the edge of the armed men who were in the camp. And Midian and Amalek and all the people of the east were lying in the valley, as many as locusts. So 300 men are fighting against the Midian and the Amalekite, who are as many as locusts. And their camels were as numerous as the sand of the seashore. Just the camels alone were as numerous as the sand of the seashore. How many people are there? A lot against 300. Verse 13. And Gideon came, and see, a man was relating a dream to his companion, and said, see. So as Gideon came, a man within YaSHaRAL is relating his dream to his companion. And as he relates this dream, he says, "See, I had a dream, and see, a loaf of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian, and it came to a tent and smote it so that it fell and overturned, and the tent fell down." Verse 14, and his companion answered and said, "This is none else than the sword of Gideon, son of YaHUaH, and man of YaSHaRAL. ALUaH has given Midian and all the camp into his hand." So ALUaH revealed the victory through a dream. He revealed what was going to happen, how the outcome of the battle. He revealed it to, he did not even reveal it to Gideon, but he revealed it to a man. His name is not even mentioned. And even the person that he told the dream to, his name is not even mentioned. He just said a man, he told his companion. Why is this so? Because the message does not necessarily matter, but it's the messenger rather. The messenger is not as important as the message. The message was that you, YaSHaRal, are going to conquer. And this message came through an unknown person who told an unknown person, and he spoke, and this message YaHUaH spoke in a dream. So again, emphasizing the issue that YaHUaH speaks through dreams. He speaks to us through dreams and visions. He says, "Once I've spoken, twice you did not hear. I speak in the vision of the night." You need to take care of your dreams. Remember them, write them down, because he speaks. Don't neglect your dreams. YaHUaH speaks through dreams. I can give lots and lots of testimony of what he has spoken to me in dreams. So in fact, he speaks to me more often in my dreams than hearing his voice in my ear. Verse 14, and his companion answered and said, "This is of YaHUaH. Definitely we are going to win this battle." Verse 15, and it came to be when Gideon heard this dream related and its interpretation, that he bowed himself down, and he returned to the camp of YaSHaRal and said, "Arise, for YaHUaH has given the camp of Midian into our hands." Verse 16, and he divided the 300 men into 3 companies, and he put a ram's horn into the hands of all of them, with empty jars and torches inside the jars. Verse 17, and he said to them, "Watch me and do likewise, and see, when I come to the edge of the camp, do as I do. Verse 18, and I shall blow the ram's horn, I and those with me. Then you shall also blow the ram's horn round about all the camp, and say, for YaHUaH and for Gideon." Verse 19, and Gideon and the 100 men who were with him came to the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch, and they had newly posted the watch. And they blew the ram's horn and broke the jars that were in their hands. Verse 20, and the 3 companies blew the ram's horns and broke the jars, and held the torches in their left hand and the ram's horn in their right hands for blowing. And they cried, "For YaHUaH and for Gideon," and each stood in his place round about the camp. And all the army ran and cried out and fled. And the 300 blew the ram's horn, and YaHUaH set the sword of each one against the other throughout all the camp. And the army fled to Bethshitta towards Terah, as far as the border of Abel and Tabah. So imagine 300 ram's horn being blown, 300 shofars being blown, and this is how they conquered the Midian and the Amalekite. So remember to do what? YaHUaH. It is the day of blowing of the shofar, the day of blowing of trumpet, the day of blowing of shouting. Praise YaHUaH. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. YaHUaH.